Dobry wieczór, comrades. So, I've been playing Genshin Impact for almost 3 months and wanted to share my opinion about the game. Let us just jump into the video. Genshin Impact is a Chinese action role-playing game created by MiHoYo and released in September of 2020. In short, you get to battle through tons of enemies while collecting loot and upgrading your characters and equipment. On top of that, you will also build your own harem of waifus and husbandos, if you're into that. The game features a fantasy open-world environment with climbing, swimming, and gliding mechanics. If you have played a lot of RPGs, especially the Japanese ones, you will find the style of the game pretty familiar and appealing. First thing you'll notice is that the game looks a lot like Breath of the Wild, which is justifiable since the devs themselves confirmed that the game was partially inspired by it. There are some similarities, but to say that Genshin Impact is the carbon copy of the Breath of the Wild will be farther from the truth. Now that the formalities are out of the way, let's get into the meat of the game. How is the presentation? First up are the visuals. Main focus of the game are the anime characters. If the devs will go with this pace, in about a year, the game will have many characters to choose from. I get the feeling that the most of them have the same base design, so to speak. In general, there are 3 bases for the small, big, and lowly characters for each gender. Small characters at the same size have the same running animation and look alike a bit. The main differences are their features, hair color or form, and the clothes they are wearing, plus the skills and normal attack animations. But this is only the feeling, so it's more of a nitpick than anything else. Overall, characters look unique enough. It's been a while since I got so attached to the characters this much. You will find at least a couple of waifus that you like. In any way, let us move forward. On top of the cute anime characters, the environment looks good too for an anime plus free-to-play game. So my advice for the most of the players would be to pay more attention to it. Sometimes the scenery is just bloody beautiful. It is more than believable, to say the least, for a fantasy-like world. There are boars and squirrels casually strolling around. If they see you, they will start running away from you. Some boars may even charge at you. There are birds jumping close by, ducks swimming in the sea, and small lizards crawling on the ground. Almost everything that shines or tries to run away from you can be collected or hunted down. This was a really big surprise for me. The first thing I collected was a fish, and I was baffled in a good way. I saw a small pond during my first 15 minutes and jumped into it and caught some fish. I drowned in the end since my stamina was pretty short, but it was a very positive experience. By the way, there is no fishing rod, so you have to go in the water and risk to drown in order to catch some fresh fish. It's a bit unpractical to say the least, and for the love of God, MiHoYo, give us a fishing rod. It can't be that hard to implement such a thing, right? There is a weather system too, but at this point there are only 2 modes, as I'd like to call it, rain and the sun mode. While rain does play an integral role for the gameplay, the sunny day has no special effect. A sheer cold environment was added in the newest region, but I think that it will mostly remain here. And on the battle side of the things, it does not have the same kind of significance as the rain. One issue that I have is the sudden change of the weather, but it's nothing major, since it does not happen too often. If you've played a couple of the RPGs, you won't see anything groundbreaking, but you will enjoy almost everything you will see, and the reason for that is that they are done pretty well. Your characters even produce the shadow when the sun or the moon shines upon them. When you use the fire type of skill or an attack on the grass, it will catch the fire and start to burn. It will even spread to nearby enemies or your characters. So in the late game, it is something to pay attention to if you don't want an unwanted elemental reaction. It is groundbreaking that such an open world looks good on the phones too. Currently, there are 2 cities in a game, but that number will grow to at least 7. The first one, Mondstadt, is clearly inspired by one of the European cities. The name is German, and if you translate, you will get the City of the Moon, or the Moon City, which sounds cool, but it's just a name. The city shows in European architecture plus a big cathedral in the center, which looks good and cool. The city is bustling with its citizens who go on their everyday life. At nights, they usually go home or hang out in a tavern. If you haven't noticed yet, yes, the game has a day and night cycle too, which decides where a certain character on the map will be. This usually only plays a role for the city and a couple of the characters outside of it. The wildlife and the enemies just go around doing their stuff even at night. But you don't have to wait for the specific time to arrive, you can freely change it from the menu. All of this makes the world even more believable, so to speak. For some people, the issue may be the fact that every NPC does exactly the same thing every day, which can get repetitive, but for a game such as this did not pose a problem for me, so I'm satisfied. The second city, Liu Harbor, is inspired by the Chinese architecture. Currently, this is my favorite city in the game, and I think that it will still remain so, even after they bring out other cities. Maybe it's because I'm obsessed with the Chinese and Japanese culture. I don't know. There is just something that really appeals to me. Overall, the city works just like Mondstadt, but I must say that the city looks really good and unique. Some of the places on the world map are also inspired from the real-world locations, such as Huaguang Stone Forest or Luhua Pool. I'm sorry for butchering these names, sadly I don't speak Chinese, so sorry. Overall, game looks beautiful. If you like animes, you will definitely love the looks of this game too. Next up are sound and music. Without losing much words, have a listen to this. I get the feeling that the person who composed the music actually played the game too. The music complements the environment you're in. For example, the caverns of Dragonspine. When you go in them, the joyful or sort of Christmassy and depressing music suddenly becomes more serious. This only adds to the mysteriousness of the cave. You might ask yourself, why is this cave here? How was it formed? Has anyone lived here? I saw ruins outside, and I see some parts of them here too. I see defensive constructs that still linger around here. When the visuals and the music are combined like this, it becomes sort of a majestic experience. I get the whole Harry Potter vibes by just listening to these tracks. When the music forces you to think this much, that means it is done well. As I have said before, the music complements the game. and elevates the whole experience by a lot. A good example of the bad music or the lack of thereof is the Warhammer the Space Hulk. Lord Mandalore made a good video about it and also touched on this topic too. Go check his video too if you haven't already. Or the Dynasty Warriors, where the music, the way it is, does not work in a game, at least for me, and actually makes the whole experience even worse. There are a couple of tracks that I like, but overall the music in this game is terrible. But back to the topic on hand. You can break down the music into 3 categories: ambient, battle, and city tracks. The music of the first region reminded me of the classical European compositions in general, with slight modern twists to it. It is a bit slower than the second region, in my opinion, but still perfect in a game. I like when a melody has a classical touch to it, but in this case, it was nothing special. The only track that I really liked was the first phase of the Wolf Boss theme, because it gets even more serious than the other tracks of this region. Oh, I should also say that every battle theme has this part when it nears the climax and becomes more dramatic and epic. Sometimes it even times itself to what actually happens in the game when you're battling a strong opponent. Sadly, it does not happen too often, especially in the late game. Maybe sometimes during the normal boss fights, but when it reaches that point, it riles you up, giving you that last push in order to defeat your opponent. The music of the Liu region is my favorite. It's Chinese style music with instruments which mostly are found in China, according to my sources, at least. The soundtrack of this region will always have a place in my playlist. Compliments to the composer and the orchestra that performed it. This is how you do the music in a video game. The only issue for me is that the music occasionally will abruptly stop and after a couple of seconds will resume itself. But sometimes the music stops itself altogether. The only way to fix this is to teleport somewhere or try to trigger it again by going in another battle. But if this happens in the middle of the boss battle, then there won't be any music until you beat it. I don't know the true cause of this. In the end, I wasn't able to solve it yet. As of version 1.2, it still happens occasionally. Sound is what you usually expect from these kinds of games. Thank God that it's not over the top. Most weapons have satisfying hidden sounds, nothing groundbreaking. Far better are the sounds of the world. The sound of the grass, snow, or the stone when you step on it. It blends perfectly in the background during the exploration. Nothing will come up as weird most of the time. What I did not like were the sounds of Fatui opponents or enemies, if you want to call them like that, especially their voice lines and grunts. I don't know if it's a bug, but their sounds get mixed up pretty often. This only happens for the Geomancer and the Fire Elemental Gunner for some reason. The first one is very calm during the whole fight, but when you hit him, he sounds like a big muscled up man, which gets you thinking what the hell is going on with him. And the Gunner's voice lines stem from 2 different people. Maybe that's the problem with the Geomancer too. It's nothing major, so to speak. It's more of a nitpick. But when you fight Fatui enemies, very often you will notice that there is something off with their one-liners or their sounds or, things that they are mostly saying. Overall, the visuals, sounds, and the music are pretty good. Honestly, I did not expect this level of quality from Genshin Impact, which makes the whole presentation of the game near perfect, especially for a free-to-play game. I just noticed that I've been talking about presentation for a lot longer than I should have. Let's just move on to the gameplay. The game starts with you choosing the main hero or heroine, who can wield multiple elements in the game. Currently only 2, wind and earth. But more elements are coming soon. Elements in general are cornerstone of the gameplay. Every element has some sort of a reaction with another element, with some buffs and debuffs that may occur, except of the wind, since every reaction with the other element produces the swirl effect that generally amplifies the damage of the reaction element. After the first couple of hours of play, you will get your first additional characters. Each character has an elemental affiliation. For example, Shan Link's skill lets her summon Guoba, her pet bear, who spits fire. Barbara's skill creates an aura that heals the active party member or the whole party if Barbara attacks the enemies while the said aura is active. It also applies the wet status effect, which in combination with ice can freeze you, so you have to pay attention when you're using this skill. Skills range from a simple fire type of a slashing attack to summoning some kind of a creature or structure that aids you in combat. So there are a lot of formations you can create, given you get the characters that you want or need for it. I think this is the best place to also talk about wish system. During the first exploration of the regions, you will get a lot of primogems, this game's premium currency, which you can buy with real money too. The only way to get new characters is through wishes or some permanent and limited events. For example, during the Falling Stars event, you could have acquired Fischl, or by clearing the floor 3.3 of the Spiral Abyss, you could get Shanling. Because of the wish system, the RNG gods have to smile upon you if you want to get a specific character, such as Fischl, or the other 5-star characters, which are pretty rare to get, and upgrades for the constellation, by just acquiring more copies of the same character. As an example, during the Zhongli banner, I had a chance to get Razor that I already leveled up and equipped with the strong artifacts, but I only got Chongyun, who is also a strong character, especially if you get multiple copies of him. As a result, now I have a Constellation 5 Chongyun and 0 Constellation Razor. Now I have to level him up in order for him to be useful, which just costs a lot of resources, plus RNG gods' favor for the artifact farming too. The artifacts are next in line for the discussion, and oh boy is the current system so random and unforgiving. The artifacts may make or break a character, the reason behind that being the primary and secondary stats. I think an example will describe everything better. The character Ningguang, sorry for butchering the name again, I have leveled her up and all, but the most important variables that have an effect on her as a DPS character are Geo percentage damage goblet and all the crit rate and crit damage artifacts and the substats for them. Usually orange artifacts will get 4 substats. They may range from bonus HP to bonus crit rate and damage. The most useful stats for her in this case are bonus attack damage, crit rate and crit damage. When you level up the artifacts, one of the substats will also be upgraded randomly. Crit rate and damage can be upgraded upwards till 10 to 15%. If every artifact will get so much crit rate and damage, I'll have at least 30 to 40% without crit rate artifact. With it, it will be up to 70 or 60 crit rate. I can also give her a weapon that has bonus crit rate, and with it almost 100% chance to crit with each attack in most cases. But everything is left to RNG. You will never know what kind of major and substats the artifacts will get. I've been playing this game for 3 months at least, and I have only seen bonus electro percentage damage goblet 2 times. Once on blue artifact and the second time on a purple. Sometimes an artifact has the first 3 perfect substats that I truly need, but I upgrade it and it gets the 4th one that I don't need. A defensive stat, for example, which on my Ningguang is a miss. And on top of that, every time I upgrade it, only the substat that I don't need gets randomly upgraded. You have to be overly lucky to get the perfect artifact with perfect substats. It is not fun to clear the dungeon over and over and not get at least one artifact you need. And after you get it, it is ruined by the substats. This kind of system is just irritating and nothing more. It just makes everything more grindier, and the game is already grindy enough without artifact farming. The only solution I got is to give us some kind of a way to choose the substats, at least to give us a chance to choose which of the substats will get an upgrade at least. The major artifact stats can remain random, but the ability to choose our own substats will make the grind more appealing at least. There could also be a system such as extracting the needed substats from an artifact, which in turn destroys it, but we get a sort of an item. With it, we could apply the stat that we extracted to the other artifacts. If something like this gets implemented, I would be more than happy. With this kind of system, the character development won't be slowed to a crawl. Currently, this is one of the biggest design flaws, which irritates me. The other being the overly high cost of upgrading the characters from level 70 to 90, but that is somehow circumventable if you play for a long time. There is RNG for the Ascension materials too, but every time you at least get the needed ones. Now here is one of the important infos for the artifacts. Never select attack percentage goblet if you have anything else. A bonus physical percentage is more useful than an attack goblet. The reason being that the attack percentage modifies the base attack stat of the character. So every attack bonus that you stack on top of it is not modified together, which most of the people thought at first and many still think today. So bonus physical percentage goblet and bonus elemental damage goblets are far useful on characters that try to use physical or utilize elemental attacks respectively. Slight differences may apply if you're building a character solely for healing or other types of support, but elemental and physical damage goblets bring out far more power from your characters than the normal attack goblets, so keep that in mind. The weapons are much easier to understand. Each and every one of them have their own set of main and substats. Main being the flat out attack power and substat being the crit rate or damage, and so on. You can also upgrade these weapons with the materials which you get from the open world and the domains. There is no RNG during the upgrading, but if you want to get the rare weapons, you have to try your luck with the wishes. Because of this, many of the cool looking weapons will never get the spotlight they truly deserve. Talents are also easy to understand. You also collect materials for them just like the weapons in order to upgrade them, and they play an integral role in characters' growth, so pay attention to them too. Problematic are the last upgrades which need a specific material that can be dropped from the big bosses such as Childe, Dvalin and Wolf Boss. RNG plays an important role yet again, and sometimes you may even not get the material you need. On the higher world levels you get save one or two of them from a single boss, but still they are random, so not every time you'll be getting the materials you need. So my question is, why is it like this? We can only farm these materials once per week. It could have been better if they just dropped a set amount of them no matter the circumstances, since you can't just spam farm them. It just feels that the devs put a barrier to stop us from getting stronger. It's more of a shame. The game is already so grindy. These kinds of barriers just ruin the overall game experience. Plus, there are already many characters that need the same kind of the material that these big bosses drop. So good luck upgrading all of them. I mean, even if they did drop a set amount every time we defeated them, it would still take us a very long time to upgrade every character that we have currently. Even though the game has a repetitive content, most of the time it does not feel so if you only play a maximum of 2 hours per day, since there isn't much to do after you've opened almost all the chests, completed all the quests, daily commissions, and used up all of the resin you had. A part of me says that there is some kind of a lack of content. I'm sure the devs will add more in the future, but currently there isn't much to do in the end game outside the Spiral Abyss, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, even though you can get free gems from it. Other than that, there are some limited events which are cool and will keep this game alive. Most of the time you will be doing commissions, domains, some events, city reputation quests, which are always welcome, and fight different kinds of bosses. Are they fun? Definitely, especially the weekly bosses on higher world level difficulties. Every time the adventure rank reaches a certain point, you will get a special quest. Completing it will raise the difficulty of your world. The drop rates will become bigger for the rarer items and artifacts, but will still remain low enough for you not to spam farm them. That is why killing mobs over and over is still not a good way to farm artifacts, even on a world level 7. It would have been better if the bosses at least gave us more ascension materials. It just adds to the grind even more. The biggest differences happen when you achieve the world level 6, since you unlock the last difficulties of the domains. The slight boost to the drop rates of the artifacts and materials is not big enough to say that it makes farming easier. Getting a character is only the half of the work. The real one comes after it, when you'll try to level it up and equip the best gear. This is a reason not to pay much for a character, since if you truly want to use her or him right away, you have to use more cash to get all the experience and ascension materials. The ones you get from the battle pass, quests and regions will not last for long. They will only be enough to level up a couple of characters. For example, I just got Mona and I have been leveling her up for the couple of days, since I had to farm for the materials, which cost resin. The resin in turn is very limited per day. After doing everything, I got her to level 70. Anything beyond that needs a lot of resources. Character and the weapon levels are not hard to raise, it just needs some time. Artifacts, on the other hand, need other artifacts to level them up, which you can get limited amount of per day, but the biggest problem is the randomness of their stats. Everything boils down to, as I've said before, if RNG gods smile upon thee. There are these set of daily commissions which have some sort of a semblance of story too, if you read them of course. Usually you can complete them without reading. For example, there is a woman who searches for the artifacts near the domain of Forsaken Ruins in Liyue region. At first I thought, okay, I'll help her in her endeavor. I got this quest more than 10 times and it was always the same. Go to the specified place and search for some artifacts. You may find it right away or fight some monsters and find it after that, or don't find anything at all. But once, only once, I got different variation of this quest. This time, when I got to the specified location, I had to defend a certain archaeologist from the treasure hoarders. They are sort of a faction in this game. You will fight them a lot, by the way. After I beat them and saved the woman, she told me that the girl who sent me in this direction might have been treasure hoarder herself, since the treasure hoarders that I beat talked about her and said that she just wants all the treasures for herself to make a fortune. Plus, when she first talked to me about commission, she started to stutter about her being treasure hoarder. It was not that hard to miss if you read the whole dialogue, actually. After this brief discussion with the archaeologist, she gave me some sort of an artifact for the woman who sent me here to not notice anything. This chain of quests is completely random, and it's a bit of a shame since I got a little invested in it. Now I have to hope to get the continuation quest, which might not happen in the near future, since RNG is bad, for me at least. But enough about the equipment and usual daily stuff. How is the true meat of the gameplay, the combat? Every character has her normal weapon combo, elemental skill, which can be an attack or some sort of a support skill that heals or buffs an active party member, and an elemental burst, a sort of an ultimate attack, which normally you can spam. But with the right artifacts, everything is possible. The elemental bursts also can buff your party members, just like the elemental skills. Every enemy, especially the elite ones, telegraph or show with the audio or visual cues when they are going to attack, which in turn gives you a window of opportunity to dodge almost every attack, even the explosive ones. So no matter the strength of an enemy, you can still win every battle if you play your cards clever. Everything changes if there is a time limit, which is why the Spiral Abyss is so hard. You need to be at least level 70 and have some really good artifacts to clear all the floors above 9. As I've said before in the beginning, the elements play an important role in a battle. That is why a careful planning of the party is essential. It is best to decide what you want to do. Do you want Reza to be your main DPS character? No problem. Put him and other support characters with him on a party, while he will be doing most of the damage through his normal attacks. The other members will either heal him, boost his damage, or try to trigger an elemental reactions with his elemental skill and the burst. Do you want Childe, or officially called Tartaglia, as your main DPS? Well, things can get a bit tricky with him, since his main damage comes from his elemental skills and elemental burst, of course, which in turn goes on a longer cooldown the longer you use it. That is why a second DPS or semi-DPS character is necessary with him. I personally put him either with Shishi, Razor, and Ningguang, or change Ningguang with Shanling. Or forget about everything and focus only on Ningguang. You can pretty much put anyone with her and it will still work. When I found out how broken she could get, she became my favorite waifu. Now I'm mostly using her until I get tired of her or start working on another broken build. By the way, did you know that you could rise the bonus physical damage amount of Razor way beyond 100%? That is what I'm working on currently. But in order for it to work, I need the mercy of RNG gods to give me the artifacts I need. This is the only problem that holds me back from my dream of broken Razor build. This constant growth and building your characters gives me at least a goal to strive for, and is main reason right now to play the game longer. In short, combat is easy to learn, but harder to master, and by master I mean break it completely by overpowered waifus. It's more of a nitpick, but it would have been better if the bosses such as Oceanid or the Wolf boss spoke their lines. It would just add to the intensity of the battle. Almost every time the Fatui or Sissin mages and the Hilichurs say their one-liners or Hilichurs gibberish language, the combat gets more intense. Well, the feeling of it, especially if the music times itself to the battle too. It would also be good if we got quests for the minor bosses, which in turn explained why they fight us or why we fight them. The Oceanid is clearly dissatisfied with us. It would just add to the background, which in turn would let us invest ourselves in the game more. I know that it may be written in some kind of codex, but these kinds of things are important to include in actual gameplay. Overall, the combat is pretty enjoyable. The difficulty becomes a bit sadistic at times, especially in a spiral abyss, if you try to force your way in with only pure brute force. So my advice will be to think about elemental reactions. They will help you a lot. UI is simple to understand and looks good. The map works too as intended. I never got lost while I was using it, but I have a small issue with it. Sometimes when I want to teleport or put a pin somewhere, the cursor just disappears and I have to click blindly to find what I truly want to click. Plus, why do we can't put as much pins as we want? I mean, come on! There are a lot of things that I want to make notice of, such as monster spawns, mine and artifact locations, and so on. I don't have enough pins. It's just irritating, to say the least. But I have a small question about the UI too. Why is every button always visible on the screen? It just gives this feeling that PC port was just an afterthought. It's just a shame. At least give us an option to hide those buttons. The other issue that I have is the mapping of tools. Currently, I can only map one tool to L1 circle, even though the other buttons should be possible too. Now we get to the exploration. The exploration is the other major half of the gameplay you will be doing during your first 30 to 40 hours and when the new regions get released. When you explore each of them 100% or up to at least 90%, then you might not explore as often as you did before, since you have already located everything, opened most of the chests. In the endgame, there isn't much to be explored outside of collecting a couple of materials. That is why it's imperative for me at least to have some kind of dungeons that can be explored individually or with other players. Of course, said dungeons should also give the players rare artifacts or weapons and should be repeatable, of course, in order to give us an incentive to explore them at all. One of the strengths of the exploration is the scale of it. For example, do you see that mountain? Yeah, you can go up there. It won't be easy, but through climbing, swimming, and gliding sometimes. I mean, I think that if you want to climb a mountain, gliding is the least useful thing to do, other than you're gliding from another mountain to another, but that's the different kind of story. There is always a clear path for you to explore, but you can do things your own way. After you achieve your goal and stand on top of that mountain, you will have a nice view of the world, at least. You can glide almost in every direction, given you have the stamina for the trip. But the fact that there is a possibility does make me happy. Sometimes, even the endgame, I casually climb the mountains for the nice views and to enjoy the environment. To miss out on these views will be detriment to the player's experience. I can understand that it will be hard to enjoy something like this on a phone or some kind of small screen. My recommendation is to enjoy the sceneries of this world at least a couple of times on the bigger screens. Trust me, you will enjoy it to the full extent, given you're into this kind of stuff. In general, gameplay is sadly a mixed bag of some good and bad design choices, which leaves us with it being slightly above average. While the combat does feel excellent, this kind of excellence can only be enjoyed fully if you get the right artifacts, and the process of getting them will be hard, sadly. Since most of the regions are not out yet, it's too soon to talk about the story and evaluate it. One thing that I can say is that it's at least serviceable at this point. There are a couple of mysteries, and I only hope that the payoffs for them will be good. In short, you are the traveler who came upon the world of Teyvat for some reason, but you met a certain lady who beats you and your sibling up and sends upon the surface of the Teyvat. Soon you will meet Paimon, the best companion in a world, whose voice sometimes irritates me too much. After the initial cutscenes, you will come upon your first Tower of the Seven, of the anima god Barbatos, who gives you the power of the wind. Well, actually, the tower gives you automatically the power, not the god himself, for some reason. After this, you meet Amba and the rest of the gang of Mondstadt. One of the issues I have is the voice of the protagonist. Why isn't there any during the story missions or dialogues? I know that she has some, so why? It does not make much sense. The voice is even shown during the ending of the main story quest for the Liyue region, as she says one line about hanging missing posters about her brother. It's not like Persona series, where the main character should be you. There, the main character only has a couple of lines and gruntle sounds. Here, the character already has a voice. Many lines have been recorded, so I don't understand why. For the people who like to tinker with the game will learn about the voice of the main protagonist eventually, so it's just pointless, if you ask me. This makes the MC lifeless. Even the fanfiction pictures show more emotion out of her, so why couldn't MiHoYo do the same? It is a question that will haunt me for a while longer. The story mission dialogue options are also more like an illusion of choice than anything else, just like in Persona series, you know? Since everything has a predestined path. There are slight variations during the side quests, but nothing too major. Overall, the story is nothing original, I'd say, but still good. If you watched a lot of animes, then nothing will surprise you much, but won't let you down too. It's enough to let you keep going through the world of Teyvat, and at least wonder how the other regions will look like. The lore of the game is interesting for me. I look forward to more of it in the game. Most of the quests are voiced, so that was surprising, even though lip syncing was mostly off and it looked a bit weird when the characters talked, but their lips did not move for some reason. But yeah, maybe they will fix that in the future too. Are the voices good? For me, yes. Except for a couple of voices, such as Paimon's, because she just irritates me. I don't know why. Overall, I'm satisfied with them. But I have one small nitpick for the whole Snezhnaya region and their looks. This region is of course inspired by the Russia, at least the names that most people have who come from this region, of course, except for Childe and Tartaglia. I'm not sure, maybe... I mean, the name Tartaglia could be from Russia, but I don't think that it's Slavic in any way. By the way, devs, for example, the name Ivanovich means that the person's father is Ivan. Direct translation will be son of Ivan. Who in their right mind would name their own son my own son? It's just silly and sticks out too much for those who understand the Russian. Just use the names like Dmitry or Vladimir, and please don't let Snezhnaya be the main villain. It's just too cliche at this point. Or give her some really good reason, not just, yeah, I want to conquer the whole world because I'm an icy queen, I guess, which, yeah, works if you think about it. But yeah, it's just too cliche at this point, okay? I mean, I've seen this kind of story a ton. One of the big issues for me, at least, is the fact that not every character is in the world currently. What I mean by this is that they are not visible in the cities or other places. For example, just put Fischl somewhere in the Mondstadt, or Bennett near Cathedral, since he often gets himself hurt. Sucrose somewhere near the Alchemy Station. Is that really that hard to do so? This will make the world of Teyvat more alive than ever. Overall, story is normal. Hope it goes in the right direction. As far as I've been playing, I haven't met any bugs or issues, only some minor visual ones, but nothing major. One big issue can be the Primogem economy. After the initial 30 to 40 hours, it slows down to a crawl. You can only get 60 gems daily as a free-to-play player. If you buy the monthly card for approximately 5 to 6 euros or dollars, you will get 90 more per day, plus 300 Genesis crystals. So 150 gems per day, plus more from Abyss floors of 9, 10, 11, and 12. For me, I can only get a maximum of 400, which you can get twice per month. So 800 gems, which is possible for the most players, whose characters are at least level 70 and have at least some good artifacts on their characters. A free-to-play player can only get around 2,600 Primogems, plus some bonuses from the events, which happen pretty often. So around 3,200 gems approximately are possible to achieve per month without spending any money. Maybe a couple more. It always depends on the event. In the end, a free-to-play player will get at least one 5-star character in 3 months, if the soft pity does its magic, or they get overly lucky, which happens once in a while. If not, every 4 months a 5-star character is guaranteed, which in turn takes a long time. That is why it is a good idea to reroll your account until you get at least one 5-star character. I didn't do this, which was a big mistake on my part. This way you will at least have one 5-star character upfront. The game is focused on players spending extra money in order to get more loot, characters, and such. The alternative to that is simply to wait. In the end, one of the aimings of the game is to get everything and level them up. So the fact that Primogem economy slows down to a crawl is not objectively an issue, because the game is designed to be like this. The game is designed for you to pay more money in order to get more things if you want them, or to get duplicates of the same characters to upgrade their constellations, but rather also to get some really rare and overpowered weapons. Partially, my Ningguang is a bit overpowered because she has 5-star weapon that I got completely random 2 months ago. My personal solution to this whole Primogem economy is to play the game as a subscription-based game. This means buying the monthly card plus Battle Pass, which overall costs around 16 to 17 euros or dollars. The reason for me paying for the game is simple: the enjoyment. I had a lot of fun. If you truly like what you see here and had a lot of fun, then it's enough for me at least to give my hard-earned cash to the devs. After all, I had upwards 30 to 40 plus hours of fun, exploring the world only for 2 regions. Nowadays, most of the AAA games cannot even do this much in single player, which in my book is a big plus for a free-to-play game, which gives you upwards of at least 20 to 30 hours of fun, without feeling that you've encountered this grinding wall. The game also has a multiplayer for up to 4 players, which is sadly bare bones. There is almost no incentive to play it, other than beating some of the bosses more easily and clearing domains without breaking a sweat. My question is, why even include something if there is almost no content for it? It's just a waste of potential. Another wasted potential are the domains. I'll say it upfront. Personally, I don't find any problem with them, but why aren't there any dungeon type domains, which you could explore explore, finding some new loot and battle enemies on the way, which would have ended with a big boss fight that would have needed a cooperation from other players in order to defeat it. This would have been epic. I hope that in the future they will implement something like randomly generated dungeons. Another issue that I have is the lack of the enemies, but this will not be a problem since the 80% of the game is not out yet. I just hope that they will add more different types of enemies, not only the reskins of the existing ones. In the end, the following question must be answered. Would I recommend Genshin Impact? Well, it's a bit hard for me to recommend it for everyone. The main reason being the gacha nature of this game. If you take out the gacha mechanics and improve some of the bad design choices, the game gets a full recommendation, at least from me. But as it is now, it's very difficult for me to give it a recommendation for every player. Okay, I'll say it like this. If you're a patient player and you know that you won't pay tons of money for the characters or better said for the wishes, then go for it. The game is free to download. After a couple of hours, you will notice if it's your cup of tea. I have played a lot of gacha games, and one of the most important virtues I've learned is that the patience wins the gacha game. If you play Genshin Impact long enough, you will become pretty powerful without paying a dime. Even now, I can clear Spiral Abyss floors till 11 without any problems. Now, since I have broken Ningguang, I think I can even clear 12th floor too, since now I know how to clear them, and my party is objectively more powerful than 3 months ago. But if you are impatient or have a sort of a gambling addiction, then don't play this game. It will ruin your life. At this point, please just stop, even if you're having fun. My personal recommendation would be to play Genshin Impact as a subscription-based game. If you have 17 to 16 euros or dollars per month to burn, this way the grind is reduced, but still there. Plus, you will have a better chance to get at least 5-star character during the banner. Overall, the game is free. You can try it anytime you want and play it at least for the first 30 to 40 hours. Genshin Impact is at least worth playing this much. And my general rule of thumb is if you're having this much fun in any kind of game, then support the dev by buying something. But don't pay too much. Do not wail in any game. Logically speaking, every game has an end and should have one. One day, when that day comes, it will be very hard for you to let go of the game if you wailed in it. Do not let the game become a chore or a sort of a job that you have to play every day. The moment the game stops being fun, then you just have to stop playing it right away, like in that very moment. There are a lot of other good games that deserve your attention. Just trust me on this one. I have played more than enough of the games to tell you this much. First of all, thank you all who watched my first video till now. It will please me if I get even at least an attention of a couple of individuals. Hope you had fun listening to it. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. If you didn't, then give it a dislike, but comment down below so that I know what to do better for the next video. If you have any recommendations for future videos or questions, comment down below too, and I'll try to answer them. As for the next video, I think I'll make a review about a one forgotten strategy game from a beloved dead company. Until next time, farewell.